Picher is a fascinating place. So it's the classic mining boom town. So originally founded in the mid 19-teens, about 1914, when lead and zinc ore was first developed, and really boomed through the 1920s, 1930s. Saw a bit of a resurgence in the Second World War when mining again increased. But by the 1960s, things had changed dramatically. The mining had dropped off a good bit, and Picher was essentially began to be depopulated.
One of the things that was striking to me about Picher is just this is a place of layered memory. So early on, this was very much like a Western boom town. The lead and zinc mines played a major role in producing materials that were part of World War I and World War II. I think there was a strong sense of national pride and community pride that was tied up in that. And I think that remained even after the mines closed. I think Picher is still, over the years remained this kind of tight-knit, proud community.
When I first visited Picher, it was in 2008, shortly following a devastating tornado that had hit the town. The tornado had destroyed about 100 homes. It had killed 6 people. It was kind of, in some ways, the last straw in this kind of troubled history of the town. And the landscape itself also clearly reflected the history. All of this stuff, all these material artifacts were spread out through a series of chat piles and other signs of the industrial history, mining history that had taken place there.
Things that were after effects of the mining industry, things like chat piles, weren't thought of in association with contamination, but instead were part of people's stories of growing up in Picher. So they would be sites of play, places where children would have picnics and go sledding. And it really wasn't until later on Picher became part of the Superfund site and remediation efforts were not successful, that there was a rupture in these kind of earlier memories of Picher, and it took on a new story.
So Superfund is EPA's program to clean up abandoned hazardous waste sites. The big name is the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, and it's been around since about 1980. So there are a number of Superfund sites in Oklahoma, about half a dozen, but Tar Creek by far is the largest and most complex of any of the sites in Oklahoma.
The exhibition comes out of a book that was published by the University of Oklahoma Press called Picher, Oklahoma. And it was a project that I collaborated on with Dr. Allison Fields. She's an art historian in the School of Visual Arts and a colleague of mine there. Allison has been doing research related to material culture and landscapes and how that relates to memory and trauma.
Todd came to me, he had already begun at this point compiling this record of photographs. We agreed that we wanted to not only to tell the particular story of Picher and think about the unique case of Picher and Picher as a community, but also to think about some of the broader implications of the project. What are the ways that memory is expressed when the people are no longer there to tell the story? So we started to think about these categories, and that's where the idea of exploring the artifacts, the landscapes, and the structures as kind of discrete categories for examining memory came in.
So I don't even recall when, but I got a call from Todd Stewart and asking about what we were doing up in the Tar Creek Superfund site. It's a part of the state where me and my students have been working for about 20 years now. So we've had long-term research sites up there. And over the years, we've developed pretty good relations with the local people, the Quapaw tribe, and other tribal entities. So Todd asked what we were doing. We actually met up there in Miami. We did a little driving tour, a little walking tour. He took some pictures, some of which showed up eventually in the book. And it was just a really a great day to talk about everything that we had learned and had going on, and kind of learn what he was interested in, and hopefully provide him some assistance in developing the exhibit. Probably the biggest thing that's happened recently is a voluntary relocation effort that bought out the communities of Picher and Carden a few years ago, essentially removing the people from the environmental risk. But that doesn't mean the problem's gone. So we still have environmental contamination problems in water and soil, the waste materials, and in the biota. So there's a tremendous amount of effort going on even today to still clean up those problems that were caused in some cases 100 years ago. The regulations that are in place now would essentially not allow what we've seen, the devastation and the environmental contamination that happened at Picher to happen again. With that said, for many, many years, we didn't have those environmental regulations. So we have a lot of sites like this with tremendous amounts of what we call legacy pollution. The legacy of that industrial production leaving the environmental harm behind that we've got to come back in and address in some way or another. Unfortunately, those regulations don't exist in the developing world. So although we've made some progress in the United States, there are many parts of the world where what we did in the US back in the 19th and early 20th century is going on today. And those regulations still need to be put in place.
Looking at Todd's photographs of the landscape, in addition to some of the historic materials that are included in the exhibit, we're hoping that people will gain a sense of the town, but also be left with the sense that there's a lot that we don't know or can't know about this space.
So one of the problems at Tar Creek is polluted water. And one of the things I think we're very proud about that's happened at the University of Oklahoma is through our research, we found technologies to help address that water. We're cleaning up some of the waters that were considered to be irreversibly damaged back in the 1980s. And that's the term they used, irreversibly damaged. And now we've built what we call passive treatment systems that don't use chemicals, they don't use on-grid power, they use everything off the grid, relying on natural processes to improve water quality. And we're producing water that is appropriate for the receiving stream. So not drinking water quality, but certainly good enough for the fish. And that's something we're really proud of, and one of the things we're most interested in over the next years is documenting how that changes the stream. We've seen some positive improvements in the last 10 years, and we're hopeful to see more in the next 10 years.
Picher is a result of a situation where the mining industry moved in. They took what they needed, they made the money they could make, and they left an environmental disaster for all of those people who lived there, for all those people who became attached to that community. We are in a place now where we are thinking about eliminating the Environmental Protection Agency. We are denying the existence of climate change, and to a large degree these are political decisions, political ideologies that are based on economic forces. I think Picher is important for what it represents. We have a tendency to make the same mistakes over and over again, and Picher, I think, can stand as a metaphor, an example of what we need to be paying attention to, especially now. I mean, I don't think that when I began making the photographs and visiting Picher, I really understood how relevant that story would be.